welcome to the Paddle and Portage Podcast. I'm here with Joe Fredericks, and my name is M. Baxley.
It's almost time to be in a canoe once again.
And depending on when you're listening to it, this episode could already be time to be in a canoe. Maybe a winter again. It's pretty timeless, this amazing technology we have that is the internet.
I guess the brain for me, because it was such a great winter, first of all. Just a major thank you to the winter itself.
Say love you, winter. We appreciated you greatly. We'll see you again next year.
And now as we get the Kevlar out, had to get that relicensed, by the way.
The new Kevlar.
Yeah.
Nice. The new used Kevlar.
The new tags, like the whole thing, and then
that just reminds me. I have 2 DNR cards that I gotta go. Oh, it's the season.
Don't forget to cut that bottom part off. You don't want to be that person that has that extra
never
blank spot on the tag.
Yeah.
Nothing worse than that. Don't be that person.
It's embarrassing.
If that's you out there, don't be that person.
Yep. You got it, Freddie.
So as we're getting the canoes out, part of that shift for me is to put away the Vexlar, which is always hard to put away at the end of the season from ice fishing rods, the auger, these tools that we use during that time of year, and bring down the open water fishing rods, looking at slip bobbers again, jigs, Rapalas, things we don't use at all during the winter months. So as we start to prepare for catching walleye again and these types of fish that we don't really target too much during the winter, had a conversation recently about keeping big fish and what that means for ecosystems. So we're going to talk about some environmental issues and some etiquette that can be used year-round when it comes to what impact we as recreationists and humans can have on a lake.
Hello, everybody. This is Chad Keeper, full-time resident at the end of the trail and a local fishing guide up here. And just sitting on the shores of a beautiful Boundary Waters Lake with Joe Fredericks. Well, I have to say for myself personally, growing up, I was never a trophy kind of guy. I'm still not. It's always a thrill to catch a big fish. And when it happens, it's exciting. But I generally don't target them. I'm more of just a numbers guy. It's just fun to go out and catch a few fish and keep a couple eaters for dinner that night. But, as I've evolved into being a fishing guide up here, it's no longer what I think when it comes to big fish, right? You've got a client out there who's paying you a lot of money, and they want that signature photo, a picture of that big trophy. And so you kind of have to balance your own views of conservation and what it means to protect the resources up here with the client and what they want to do. And so that's kind of been a little bit of a struggle. I've had a few occasions where clients caught a decent sized fish, a nice walleye, and wouldn't consider them trophies, but they're certainly a fish that I would have thrown back, and they want to keep them. And you try educating them, coaching them, talking them out of it, and at the end of the day, they're like, this fish is coming home with us. And so kind of had to learn that it's out of my control at times.
I'm E.J. Isaac, Grand Marais Fisheries Supervisor.
Well, I guess the first thing that comes to my mind is, these fish are delicious, and I totally understand, people keeping fish. We want to promote fishing and the harvest of fish for consumption and a lot of the value and positives of it. Now, from a biological standpoint, it is typically best to leave or release those larger fish. Larger fish in general, across species, tend to be females. The big females are the bigger of the fish, and females are more important for the reproductive capacity of the lake or the population. Say you've got a really large walleye, it's likely female, and she's gonna, be responsible for egg deposition. Typically, there are, more males, and a single male can reproduce with multiple females. So the kind of capacity for the lake to replenish itself is largely dependent on those females. To kind of add to that, larger females, the bigger the fish, the more eggs she'll have, and the better quality of those eggs. So bigger, older females tend to have larger eggs, better survivorship, better hatching. So kind of all things, the bigger the female, the better her reproductive fitness. So yeah, it is best to kind of eat those smaller fish or keep those smaller fish and let the bigger ones be there in the population for reproductive purposes.
I like to eat fish. I like to follow the regulations on what's considered safe to eat, and those littler fish are generally healthier to eat. The bigger fish, more toxins, but also, yeah, they're the big egg producers, and and I know, fisheries biologists talk about if you take that fish out of the system in spring or fall, it doesn't really matter in the wintertime. If it's full eggs or not, you're still removing those eggs from the system, right? Whether it's producing at that moment or not. So, I just like to put those big ones back. And whether it has an impact on the actual fishery itself, I don't know. But just me personally, I feel better about putting them back.
Where we base harvest or mortality rates and stuff like that on, aren't taking into effect that there might be that selection going on where people would have to release big fish. It's the modeling incorporates angling across all the different size classes. But it's something we like to let people know of and be so that they can make good decisions and know that, well, it is more beneficial for the fish resource to maintain those bigger fish in the population. From another perspective about big fish, a lot of contaminants are bioaccumulating. So larger fish are higher in concentrations of things like mercury, and there's a lot of chemicals of concern, emerging concern, things we don't know the effects of, especially like pharmaceuticals, that bioaccumulate in these larger fish. As we're able to develop methods to test for things, we find that we can find them. So older fish are going to have larger burdens of contaminants than smaller fish.
Hey Paddle and Portage listeners, this is Kate from Bending Branches. If you're like us, paddling isn't just something you do, it's part of who you are. And when you're out on the water, your paddle isn't just a tool, it's your connection to the adventure. At Bending Branches, we take that seriously. For over 40 years, we've been handcrafting canoe and kayak paddles right here in northwestern Wisconsin. We obsess over every detail, making them lighter, stronger, and built to last, because we know what it's like to be deep in the wilderness, where every ounce of weight matters and every stroke counts. We test our paddles the best way we know how, by using them, on winding rivers, glassy lakes, and carrying them on backcountry portages. Crafted with tradition, engineered for adventure, designed by paddlers for paddlers. So, before your next trip, stop by your local paddle shop or outfitter and find the Bending Branches paddle that's right for you. Because great adventures start with great gear, and the right paddle makes all the difference.
This episode of the podcast is sponsored by North Country Canoe Outfitters. Every one of their trips is custom planned and based on your interests, what type of trip you want to do, what length of trip you want to do, number of campsites and portages, family trip, mother-daughter trip, school, church group, scouts. All abilities and levels of the group are accommodated. They got lakeside overnight accommodations before and after your trip. They offer BWCA and Quetico options. Outfitting from canoes only through canoe and food combos to 3 levels of completely outfitted. They've got what John Scheffelbaum at North Country describes as a menu second to none, certified Angus beef brand steaks. John started the company 42 years ago, and now about 32,000 paddlers later, he's still individually mapping out every trip for every party. North Country Canoe Outfitters is 6 miles from Ely. They go to 25 different BWCA entry points, along with the Quetico Park via Prairie Portage and Lac LaCroix entries. North Country Canoe Outfitters is the company, and the website, boundarywaters.com. I gotta ask John how he got that. boundarywaters.com. North Country Canoe Outfitters. Appreciate their support on the podcast.
Hi there, I am Lauren Dagan. I'm a fisheries technician at Lake Superior for the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, and I'm out here on the St. Louis River fishing for sturgeon. I grew up fishing. I grew up in the northern Minnesota, so always going to reservoirs, little lakes. That's how we spent our time. I didn't really imagine that I would be in the fisheries field, but I definitely love it. And I just love touching fish and being around a different animal. I mean, something different than like hunting or something. You usually see a big animal and that's kind of it maybe, or you're trapping a few, but fish, you can really get up the numbers in a day and see a lot of different things, different species, all in one spot. Letting go of sturgeon in general, I mean, it's a law right now, you have to do it, but even if you're in a state where it wasn't legal, I think it's important to release sturgeon in general, let alone the big ones. For males, it takes them about 15 years to sexually mature, and females is up to 25 to 30. So, it takes a long time for them to be able to add more to the population. I don't have a lot of experience with walleyes, but like with lake trout, they've built up these genes to be big. So it's important to let those fish keep reproducing, and then maybe in 5-10 years you'll have way more big fish that you can maybe take a few of those from then. Handling fish is super important. You never really want to get up in their gills. You don't want to stick a hand in your lungs. That doesn't feel good. And being quick about it, getting them in and out of the water. Of course, everybody wants their awesome picture. Go for it, take it. But, don't be extra with it. Give them their breaths. And especially when the temperatures rise too, you want to cut that time way shorter when you're keeping it out of the water and just handling in general. There's so many things that you still can catch and keep, and it's still, I think it's a great thing to just catch and release. It's still just a fun day in general.
We here at Cascade Vacation Rentals know that life has a tendency to be overwhelming at times. Busy schedules often leave many people feeling overwhelmed and disconnected. That's why we're here, to offer you the space and opportunity to reconnect to what's important. We have one of the largest selections of privately owned vacation rental homes and cabins on Minnesota's North Shore of Lake Superior. Have access to the BWCA practically at your doorstep. Visit us online at cascadevacationrentals.com and book your dream getaway today.
If we go fishing like I've been halibut fishing. I paid somebody to take me out, or that type of thing. I mean, it doesn't even enter my mind about is it too big or small or whatever. It's just like, I paid this person to take me out charter fishing. Yeah. I want the meat. Yeah, it's part of kind of why I'm here, and I think that it sounds like that's what happened with that 25-incher or that bigger fish that person caught, that they're just not even making the connection. Correct.
The exact wording was, Grandpa never threw anything back, so I'm not gonna. Yeah. Man. Yeah. Well, that's a dangerous philosophy on not just fishing, but life in general. Yeah, and then the person in the boat with this particular individual said, well, that's why there's not as many big fish anymore, because Grandpa kept them all, kind of thing. So there was some education on my part and education on this person's friend that was with them in the boat. So, maybe that message sunk in. I don't know. But you're right, Joe. Like, I go to Alaska. I catch salmon, halibut. I want to bring a cooler home. I go down in the Florida Keys, or I fish in the Sea of Cortez, and I want to bring some Dorado and tuna back. And so I'm hypocritical if I don't say I like to keep fish and that kind of thing. So, those sorts of fish, though, when you get a big one up to the boat, they gaff it and they bring it in, and there's no release at all because the fish is already damaged. At least we can, if we net them properly, unhook them quickly, get them back in, we can release a lot of our big fish. But yeah. So I know I'm kind of hypocritical.
Well, and back to the side, let's say like a 15 to 18, 15, 17. Do you notice like even like the texture is better versus like a larger one, or is it more just the contaminants that you're talking about?
Yeah, maybe I'm just making up. If you ask a lot of people, I think the smaller fish generally have a little bit firmer flesh. The bigger they get a little bit softer, a little bit more mealy, I think. So yeah, I think the quality is just better on a smaller fish than the big ones. You know, even with the toxins aside, I think they do taste a little bit better. You know, and that fish is, I don't know what the growth rate is up here, but you know, 15 to 17 inch fish, maybe that's a 4, 5, 6 year old fish versus, you know, you get up in that 20 inch range. Those are 10, 12, 15 year old fish. So these smaller ones can regenerate a little bit quicker and that kind of thing.
How do you deal with mortality and you know, sometimes maybe it's swallowed the hook and it's just like, even if it's big, you got to keep it. I mean, there are exceptions to these rules.
Correct.
That we're talking about. It
Correct.
seems like we're sort of approaching it from this fish can be released philosophy.
Yeah, if it comes up and it's gut hooked or it's gill hooked and it's throwing blood and that kind of thing, boy, I tell you, it's either going to become crayfish food or eagle food if you throw that back. I mean, that fish is dead. So I think that changes the equation a little bit. It's like, okay, are you going to utilize this fish that you just caught? It's going to die either way, or you let nature utilize it. And so in that case, I'm a little more apt for them to keep that fish. You know, same with deep water fishing. If you know, you're on a lake like, let's say, Sag or Seagull, where, you know, there was a 17-inch slot on it, which has gone away now. If you're out fishing in 35 feet of water and you pull a 16-inch walleye up from that depth, research tells you it's probably a dead fish. Barotrauma is going to kill it. Whether it's crappies, same thing. Lake trout are a little bit more able to roam the water column. So that's another consideration. If you're on a lake that has a slot limit and you're fishing deep water for walleye, you're basically hoping to catch one that's in the slot, and if you're not, you're just killing fish. So for me personally, I generally, if there's a risk I'm going to catch smaller fish, I don't go deeper than 30 feet for walleye. That's kind of what the research says, that's sort of the magic depth. You go beyond 30 and the mortality rate goes up quite quickly. So for me personally, if I'm just out for a day of fishing where I'm going to catch and release and not keep anything, or I'm on a slot lake, I try and go as shallow as I can and still catch fish. But once again, you get clients in the boat and then it's a different story because there's a lot of pressure to catch fish. And if they're deep, you know, you go deep. So it's tough.
When water temperatures get warmer, we'll just say summer. During summer, where lakes are cold towards the bottom and warm at the surface, catching fish that are deep in the water, cold water, and bringing them up and fighting them in through the warmer waters provides more stress. It's more stressful on the fish. So you have higher hooking mortality, or mortality associated with capturing and handling the fish. So during the warmer summertime temps, you'd want to minimize that as much as you can. The mortality rates, say spring and fall, or when water temperatures are cold or generally cold throughout the water column, there's less of an issue. Those fish are able to handle those temps a lot better.
Mm-hmm. And when you say depth, how deep you talking? Let's say you're going for walleye in August.
Yep. Say if it's August and the warm waters have went further and further down, and you might be fishing 30 feet of water or 20 to 30 feet to find walleyes. Yeah, you will likely notice, or studies have noticed that, yeah, if you're pulling out fish that are greater than 20 feet deep, you're going to see increased mortality rates associated with hooking. And as you typically go deeper, you know, if you're going 30 or 40 or 50 feet, those effects can be more pronounced.
Does that mean that if you're fishing that depth, you should just plan to keep what you catch because it's probably going to not survive? Or is it that clear cut?
Yeah. So you kind of have a couple options. You could say, hey, you know, I'd like some fish. I plan on eating some fish. Yeah, I'm going to target some of these deeper structures or pull fish up from deep water that we know are going to be more stressed. I plan on keeping them. So, yep, that's one approach. You can also say, all right, I'm not sure what I'm going to keep or want to. I'm going to fish shallower so that I have a little bit more flexibility of, all right, I caught a few small fish, you know, out of 10 feet of water, 15 feet of water. And the effects of releasing those fish, you know, are, there's a much higher survivorship where it becomes kind of negligible on that hooking mortality.
Okay. And you and I have talked about this in the past, DJ, but fill me in if I'm saying something inaccurate, but there can be instances where somebody catches a big fish, gets the picture, releases it, it kicks away, and appears as though it's been a healthy release or a successful release, but that fish might be dying. Mortality might happen a day or two afterward.
You're correct. There are, there's the signs that we can see physically on the fish that are usually under those more moderate to extreme cases. Fish have really bulgy eyes. Maybe their stomach is kind of coming up out of their mouth, or maybe got some bloodshot, or effects that you can see on the fish. When you see those, or it gets to the state that you can see them with your eye, that fish has some serious health issues that it's going through. That's a lot of stress. But you can still have a stressed out fish that you catch, minimal handling, it's returned to the water, it goes down and you can't see it, and you don't know. Those fish still are susceptible to, effects of barotrauma, or the fact that they're brought up from deep depths and kind of moving up, skyrocketing to the surface very quickly, cause a lot of internal damage we can't see. We're learning more about it through new technology, say even live scope to some degree. You're able to watch fish over a period of time, have provided some insight. But yeah, just because you release a fish and it swims down doesn't mean that everything was okay. There could be delayed mortality. Studies in the hatchery systems have found this, where, you hold, the fish looks okay, but, you hold them over a couple of days and, well, yeah, the mortality happened, after a day.
Wow. And are those fish floating to the surface, or what happens if a fish is caught, released, swims away, and even goes down toward the bottom? Does it, and dies? Like, what happens then?
Well, it's a great question, and I wish we had a lot more answers, because it's tough that we don't know. I think we can say with a good certainty they're not floating to the surface. If these fish are dying, they're kind of resting on the bottom, and however that swim bladder, how that oxygen gets used up, maybe we don't have the mechanisms really well identified, but those fish are staying on the bottom. Otherwise, you'd see lots of dead fish floating at the surface. Right. Or the same with old fish when they've reached their end of life in senesce. They're, you're not finding them floating at the surface. They're kind of just gone.
Mm-hmm. But part of back to the system, I mean, in that regard, there's still value in the death, the life and death of the fish, I guess. There are.
So it's not to say that there's a drastic loss. Energy stays within the system, and it's all connected food web.
Mm-hmm.
I think on that topic, it is prudent for folks to be careful, very mindful handling fish, and perhaps even waiting if the fish looks like they're having trouble swimming or released. If they keep popping up to the surface or they can't get down, it'd be prudent for anglers to consider keeping fish that they can clearly see that there's signs of issues.
Okay. And then just back to like the big fish, keeping big fish that somebody catches. Is that something that the DNR sort of advocates for, is to release big fish? Is that like...
I wouldn't say it would go as far as advocate for anglers needing to do something like this, where we base harvest or mortality rates and stuff like that on, aren't taking into effect that there might be that selection going on where people would have to release big fish. The modeling incorporates, angling across all the different size classes, but it's something we like to let people know of and be, so that they can make good decisions and know that, well, it is more beneficial for the fish resource to maintain those bigger fish in the population.
I mean, it sounds like you eat fish, certainly, but that's not you're just into it for a lot of reasons. What are some of those reasons?
Great question. Well, part of it is I was raised fishing, so I had a dad that took me fishing all the time. I was lucky, one of those kids. Growing up in Minnesota, a lot of opportunities. But I've just noticed too, with like nephews or other people's kids, some kids just have a different gene where they're wired to fish, right? Where they will be out from sunrise to sunset on that dock watching a bobber. And I guess I was always kind of one of those fish. To me, it was the fascination of water and what's underneath it, and then knowing that there's fish down there and trying to match wits with them, and then that rush of catching that fish and bringing it in. Whether I kept it or not wasn't really the important thing. It was just that excitement. And then I like to fish in pretty places. Like we're right now sitting in the Bounty Waters on a gorgeous day, upper 30s, sun's out, and to me, fishing is an excuse to get out and just enjoy this area. So it gives me something to do. I like to have a task when I'm out. If I'm hiking, I like to have a destination I'm going to. If I'm out fishing, might as well have a rod in my hand if I'm out on the water kind of thing. So that's basically just the fascination of fish. I always joke if I could have done my career over again, I probably would have been a fisheries biologist because I think it's fascinating. But yeah, that's kind of why I do it.
Like what's going on under there?
Yeah. There's all kinds of critters down there. There's a whole food chain. There's a whole universe down there, and it's a mystery. It's just kind of fun to see if you can figure out some of that mystery and find the fish and bring a few up. And I don't know, it's just fun.
Well, because like for example, today we see this wolf out on the ice, and had we not come fishing, which is this is the reason we're here, we wouldn't have seen that, or we wouldn't even be here. Probably we're not. I don't think we would have chosen to come ski here, and I don't think anybody would.
Well, look to the motley crew of guys we have out here. We're all bound together by our love of fishing. Like there's a couple guys here that never would have met had we not had a similar love of fishing. So it's kind of fun too. You come out and meet new folks and explore these areas. But yeah, that wolf this morning is pretty cool. Like he was a little aware of us and not quite sure what to make of us, and we were kind of wondering what he was doing out there, and looked like he found something to eat on the ice. But
thanks to some fishermen.
Yeah, some fishermen must have left some minnows there or something. But
yeah.
But that was pretty cool.
So you've got this article, so people can go to the website and find this article. Like, what sort of spirited you to put some words down to support like what we're talking about?
Yeah, I think it was that experience I had when that person caught that big walleye and didn't want to let it go. It really hurt me. Like when I cleaned that fish, and it was some eggs developing already, and it was a heartbreaker for me. And I thought about my evolution as a fisherman from when I was a kid. You're a little bit more apt, like, what's my limit? I want to get my limit. If I don't get my limit today, the day's a failure kind of thing. To where I am now I'm in my 50s, it's like, well, if I catch a fish, great. That's always the goal. It makes the day more enjoyable. But if I don't, I'm fine. Like, I just spent a beautiful day out with either someone in the boat that's fun or out hiking or whatever. And it's just not a motivating factor for me. But now that I guide, it's like, okay, I have to remember these people are paying a lot of money. They've come from great distances sometimes to come here and fish, and they want a good experience. And for me personally, if I was out that day, I'm like, I don't care if I catch a fish, but you got to get these people on fish. So that was sort of what drove me to write or start thinking about this, was just my own evolution as a fisherman from a kid to now, an older adult, but also just how do I approach clients in my boat, and how do I coach them, and how much is too much coaching on catch and release and selective harvest and stuff like that. So I kind of just wanted to put my thoughts down on paper, and whether it ever became anything, who knows, but it was just something I want to write for my own personal journey.
Thank you so much to all the different voices who chimed in this episode, either personal experience or scientific research and evidence and passion. Really, all of these people care deeply about not just fish, but the place, the ecology, and the way we interact with it. And that, as much as fishing's not my highest priority, I feel it. I feel the importance of all of it.
Well, I really like, too, how we were able to look at it through the lens of what taking out a big walleye in this instance, as Chad was sharing with us, means for the entire food web, the whole lake, the health of these pristine waters up here, or wherever it is that you might be fishing. Like, this is a pretty across-the-board rules and approach that we heard from the fisheries biologists and so forth.
Could be a lake outside of Mankato, or a lake outside of Grand Marais.
Exactly. Yeah, so just appreciate the perspective that you don't have to be an angler to hopefully take away some worthwhile information from this episode. And we're going to be getting out in canoes now and hearing different sounds for the next few months. The sound of the auger has gone away. We're replaced by the paddle and the canoe hitting the water. I'm just really looking forward to taking it slow here at the start of the season. We had a lot of ice, so there's late ice out. The water's going to be cold up through Memorial Day at the very least into June up here in the Boundary Waters. And as your paddling season gets underway, we hope you have a safe and wonderful year ahead, and follow us at Paddle and Portage for the next season as we start the next transition.
We appreciate you. Keep coming with us. We're having a good time.
Roll me, rock me in my dreams. So I like to sing, I love to dance. I play the fool if I got the chance. All around the campfire light. All around the campfire light. All round, all round, all round the campfire light.